everyone. It's a big news day in the world of Transformers, so I have put on a little extra coat of paint on this particular brand of video for the occasion. See, we just got a announcement for a brand new Masterpiece toy. It is MP-57 Skyfire. After months and months of rumor and speculation, we are finally getting what is going to end up being one of the largest Masterpiece toys to date. So, I've always really liked Skyfire, not Jetfire. I didn't have the original toy as a kid. Have it now, but never had it when I was actively playing with G1 toys. But I loved Skyfire. I really liked Fire in the Sky as an episode. This is an episode devoted to making Skyfire look cool, so of course I probably would end up really liking Skyfire. I did always feel bad for him. Skyfire is a weird thing where he's such a huge character they had to write him out of episodes so he didn't overpower anything and make it too easy for the good guys. So his debut episode, he wakes up, gets tricked into joining the Decepticons, decides to become an Autobot, crashes and buries himself again, and they just kind of leave him there. They just kind of abandon Skyfire in the ice. And then a few episodes later, Fire on the Mountain happens, and they're like, we should probably go dig him out, and they dig him out and he's fine. He didn't die. So I don't know exactly what they were going for. Why did you just leave him there? Okay, so weirdness of the original cartoon aside, I'm very happy to actually see Skyfire has made a proper Masterpiece toy. It's an interesting choice considering there's still so many from the 84 cast that were more recurring characters that never actually have gotten an MP toy to date. Still waiting on a lot of the Minibot cast, for instance. But let's take a look at the little blurb to see what we got going on here. It is inspired by the G1 cartoon. I should hope so. You legally cannot base it off of the toy. 35 centimeters tall, which is around a little above 19 inches, which means it's going to be considerably bigger than even the Siege Jetfire figure, which is already huge. Let's see. There's going to be, they did do comparison shots with the new, a nice variety of MPs. Prime 3.0, Ironhide, Bumblebee 2.0, Starscream 2.0. I'll show you those when we get down there. Designed by Takara Tomy designer Kojin Ono. That's a veteran name you should recognize. Includes rifle stand, 3 interchangeable faces, 2 blast effects, Autobot and Decepticon plates, and a blank plate. So all 3 variations of Skyfire from Fire in the Sky, all available. Minifigures are articulated. Now this is cool. So it's 3 minifigures of Optimus Prime, Wheeljack, and Jazz. Hey, look, Masterpiece released a Jazz figure, and they are surprisingly articulated for their size. I wish we had. They don't have scale comparisons for these minifigures. But we'll get a little bit of an idea of how big they actually are. See, the alt mode can still extend the robot arms and legs while transformed, as seen in the G1 cartoon. So there's a lot going on here. And there's also a lot of spots on Jetfire for the minifigures to sit and hide away. All right, so let's take a look at the toy properly. He is exceptionally accurate to the original cartoon. Very sleek and smooth compared to the Siege figure. A lot of the details and proportions are correct. Obviously, Masterpiece goes out of its way to get all that kind of stuff correct right out of the gate. Including right down to just weird design details, like the little nubs that come off of his forearms. It's always stuck out weird to me, but it's a thing. Vehicle mode looks appropriately boxy. He was not exactly the sleekest of vehicle modes in the G1 cartoon. The booster pack does something really neat, and you'll see it in another picture. For now, we're going to kind of focus on, seems to be a gap issue here. I don't like this. At the MP scale, I don't think there really should be an excuse for having such a huge gap in the vehicle mode here. That seems a little bit sloppy. I mean, to my knowledge, like I remember the G1 cartoon pretty well at this point. I've seen it so many times. I've seen the top-down view of Skyfire. He doesn't have this gap, so this just seems like a weird oversight in the design that I'm not really happy with, considering it's an MP and considering the price of the toy. So let's see. Yeah, we can see his articulation range is exceptionally large. Considering his bulk, he does have a lot going on. He can hold his rifle with both arms, despite how big he is. Thank you to the miracle that is butterfly joints. Yeah, looking really, really good. Here are the individual plates, Autobot, Decepticon, and the blank one for when he just freshly woke up. And our nicest look at the robot mode that they gave us. For whatever reason, Takara Tomy stock images do not include just like a normal, like, standing in place by himself pose for Jetfire or Skyfire. Man, I'm going to confuse that a lot. Just looking up and down straight arms so we can get like a really good shot of how the robot mode looks. But we can get enough of it here. It looks really, really good here to me. All right, so here's an interesting shot. So we have the aforementioned leg extension mode. It's not Gerwalk. We can't call it that legally, but the toy is capable of having legs in jet mode. Gee, I wonder why. There are scenes in the original G1 cartoon where like he did extend the arms from vehicle mode, he did extend the legs from vehicle mode mid transformation. So this is not inaccurate. This is not like this is not just a thing where it's trying to mimic a Valkyrie from Macross. It legitimately did this in the cartoon. What's fun about this is we see a few of the different spots where these minifigures can actually store away. I assume that the other side of the jetpack can actually have like another cockpit in it. So you have 2 Autobots stored up there and a third in the actual cockpit. Yeah, these are super tiny scale. And I love that they are ball jointed and hinged. So they are like pretty decently articulated for their size. You also see the extra panels down here. So like there's little attack positions that some of the Autobots can take as well. It's a fun little inclusion. It kind of makes me wish that this little set of figurines was something that's more common and something that they would just produce on their own. Because you know what? I've got Metroplexes, I've got Fort Maxes, that things like that would be brilliant for. Yeah, it's a cool little inclusion. That alone, I think, is pulling me into the realm of wanting to pre-order this. All right. Okay, so here's the cool thing about the jet mode. Notice there's a block missing out of the top of it now. So this is correct to the G1 animation model. It's just one big solid booster pack. And then we jump over here, and now it's 2 individual boosters linked in the middle. A little bit of throwback to the original toy, I feel. I like that they included this. This gives it a nice little nice little extra bit of dimension and a few new display options for those who are more reminiscent for the toy rather than the cartoon model. Really, really good call on Takara's part. Really, really like that. Speaking of the original toy, I don't think you can do a Jetfire or Skyfire or anything like that without having a masked face. So we do have something more akin to what he would have looked like if he was animated with a more toy accurate design. This would be more reminiscent if you remember the original G1 commercial for the Jetfire toy. It did have because it actually did stick pretty close to the original Macross model, so it's actually closer to this than it is Skyfire. But the only time you see like Jetfire animated rather than Skyfire. I also like that you have the option of leaving the wings down and folded out in the robot mode, so you actually do get something much more akin to the original toy. Once again, it's a really nice display option to provide if you're more nostalgic for the action figure. Here's the scale. Here is the scale. So we can see he's twice as tall as MP Ironhide, who is not a small figure in the least. So what's interesting to me about this photo is, one, you see the Spike figure down there. The Spike figure is already pretty small. I don't have one handy here to actually provide a proper demonstration. But it's a very small figure. So realize that those tiny little display figures are even smaller than that, because here's the leg panel that Wheeljack was standing on, and you can remember how tiny he is in that photo, and that'll give you some semblance of the scale of what we're dealing with on those tiny little minifigures, which is actually really, really cool. And again, I kind of wish I had them just for like display purposes. What's interesting to me about this shot is it's kind of telling. So the price on this figure comes to just under. It comes to Big Bad Toy Store has it at $270 to pre-order. What's interesting to me about that is that's not even close to like the most expensive Masterpiece figure. Obviously, the one to Skyfire's right here is more expensive in that regard, but that's with the trailer. Without the trailer, if you look at the Nemesis Prime version, MP-44 sells for $250. It's only a $20 difference, and you look at the size difference, and remember how big that backpack is, how much more bulk there is to Skyfire than there is Optimus. And it really shows you just how much part count and design complexity goes into the price of what you're paying for. Skyfire does seem to be far simpler in design and transformation and even part count than MP-44. It's interesting to me that they can be so different in scale but so close to price based solely on the fact that Skyfire is just not nearly as complicated. So that was my takeaway from this shot, which it puts things into perspective, I feel. Not only that, it's huge. This thing is gigantic. Whew. All right, so accessory count here. All right, so we have individual faces. We have multiple expressions for Jetfire along with the mask face. I actually can't tell if these are 2 additional faces on top of the ones you get or not, because there's only 2 extra plates shown. So I think these are 2 extra faces and then the masked face. So it's actually quite a few facial options. Yeah, his rifle from the G1 cartoon. He's got boost effects for his jet engines. And then, yeah, he gets a arc-colored display base. We've seen this display base several times in Transformers to this point. Those minifigures, whew, those are fun. Yeah, so let's see. We have other shots. Yeah, so just to show little comparisons, just to get an idea of how accurate the detailing is, this tech greeble is present on the toy. So they got that right. The intakes are in the right spot. They did let the cockpit be a little bit larger than it is in the animation model, which is for the best. This tiny little cockpit in the front never did quite look right. I got shots of the back of Skyfire as well from the G1 cartoon. I went back and looked at how his back looked as well, and this is relatively close. Some of the parts aren't quite in the right spot, but it's a nitpick at that point. I mean, it's almost exactly where it's supposed to be. Yeah, still, like, you can see just how much bulk that backpack adds. Doesn't seem to be detachable in any way. That's the one thing that I think would really make it akin to the G1 toy, is if this backpack could come off and he could just be a jet on his own. But considering it's animation accurate with the wings as part of the jetpack, probably not possible. Which is, not the worst of things. It's just, about one of the only options I could think of that they could include that, unfortunately, due to accuracy, they cannot. Yeah, nice turnaround shots there. We also get, okay, so there's how he looks next to Starscream. Man, they certainly nail, like, how big he is in the cartoon. Like Skyfire was massive, if you're not up on your G1. So this is actually really, really cool. More posability and display options. Yeah, that's a scene. The bottom right is a scene from Fire in the Sky, where he meets Spike and Sparkplug for the first time. There's another shot in here we saw earlier where he actually showed, he was actually in the pose for his G1 box art, which I thought was cool. And here we have the original display stand which has been redone into a repair bay. You can see the forearm panels flipped up, which I assume is part of the transformation. Cockpit flipped up. The one thing I see here that wasn't mentioned in the tech blurb is his head actually opens up, which is part of the scene in Fire in the Sky, where he's actually being repaired by the Decepticons. Really small detail to include, but actually really cool that they did include it. I actually really appreciate that. Yeah, and there is that scene where he just like busts out an Autobot symbol that he just, I don't know, pulled out of his afterburner. Yep. Okay, more shots of how he looks with the mask and the individual boosters. Mounting, he can mount his gun on one of them. Okay, so again, more toyetic options, always a good thing. There's the thrusters and a shot of how he looks from behind. Like I said, not the most complicated of transformations, but he doesn't really need it, to be fair. And there he is with the legs out, with the arms out, which is weird. Like, you imagine designers that actually have to come up with, okay, it has to look accurate in both modes, and then it has to do these two weird things too. So make sure it can do both of those. And Takara designers are incredible, by the way, that they can actually make things like this happen. As I'm looking at this, like, I can see where these components around the cockpit area form the components here on the right. I have no idea where his arms are in this shot. I assume they tuck into the backpack somehow. It's just a really impressive bit of engineering I just noticed. I'm like, where did the arms go? The arms completely vanish in this shot. All right. So, yeah, this is still super cool. All right, more shots of the minifigures playing around. Yeah, you can see that he has like an access here in the front, which is more akin to how Autobots boarded him in the G1 cartoon. You can just see them just hanging around Skyfire mostly. And then, yeah, that's a really good scale shot with Optimus Prime in the bottom right. Really, really dig this so far. Like, there's a lot of really cool play factor to this toy. Yeah, I believe that's what we got so far. And yeah, it's pretty incredible what they managed to do with this figure. It's super exciting. 38,500 yen coming out in January. Like I said, that's about $270 American right now. And I believe Big Bad's not getting theirs until February. It's one of those big boy pre-orders where you can't actually pre-order it preemptively and then cancel it later because there's a deposit involved. So I haven't taken the plunge yet personally. I'm not sure if I need another gigantic Jetfire in my life, but oh boy, it's tempting. So, general thoughts, that's the reveal. Super exciting figure, I think, is a really interesting one for Masterpiece to release. So, thank you guys for watching. Tell me in the comments below what you think of Skyfire, if he is on your radar. Tell me, I'm more interested, tell me if the price point is palatable given the size. I know MP-44 for his size was pretty ridiculous price-wise for a lot of people, but this guy is so much bigger for only a little bit more. I'm genuinely curious what people are thinking about him. So, I will leave you with that. Thank you guys for watching and supporting the channel, and I will see you next time for more Transformers goodness. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.